Okay, dreamer please.
Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. So you guys have requested for Lubu's video, so I decided to push him up earlier. For his passive, he decreases magic damage received for himself, increases suffocation resist, which is not very useful because Tara is not really used now, and also decreases physical and block rate for universal enemies. Physical, not so important because most universal enemies are like Wukong and Melia who use magic attacks, and his block rate decrease is however useful and stacks with Cult's defense decrease. His single target is one that is very hard hitting, has lethal rate, ignores defense, and also targets universal enemies first. His AoE deals 400%, has additional crit rate, decreases block rate and defense by 40%. So I don't think this stacks with his own passive and Cult's passive, okay? So not so useful right now, but he hits very hard. And finally, for his awakened skill, he deals 20,000 fixed damage to all enemies, 80% chance to silence, and also reveals hiding enemies and changes their formation. So the silence kind of overlaps with Yonhee and Dylan's. Not very good in that case because all the resistances from the enemies will be there. So that's just my 2 cents about it. I give him double crit rate because I'm using him on a physical team with Fenrir. You realize that his stats are pretty high. Double HP, Guardian Ring with Electrify, not so important for the substat because he's not on a counter build. Crit rate, lethal rate increase, skill use chance increase, and survive with 1 HP. Survive with 1 HP is super important because he is pretty much a glass cannon. I've tested so many glass cannons so far, and this jewel comes in at a clutch moment. And for his fighter soul, I've given him a more offense-based fighter soul setup. And finally, for his traits, stun resist, sleep resist, and silence resist. I'm going to show you guys a different build because I've tested 2 types of Lubu in this video. The next one is the counter build. So counter armor is a must here, and you see that his counter rate is 98%. I didn't give him a counter jewel, but because his exclusive item actually increases counter rate by 20%. So that is an extra bonus for him that he can increase counter rate innately. So we're going to look at the first few matches. These are all with HP Lubu, okay? Just a reminder, HP Lubu. Counter, my main counter is actually Dylan's, just for testing purposes. And I also buff Dylan's capabilities to a very high amount, crit and lethal very high, okay? We'll see how that goes. So Lubu's passive doesn't really benefit anyone, only, as I said, the block rate decrease for universal enemies. So in this case, thankfully his single target hit. Oh, it hit the Wukong, that's perfect. So basically, yes, it really targets universal enemies first. And thankfully the Wukong didn't have Guardian Ring, so it basically cuts all the HP of the Wukong to 1 HP. And that's actually a very strong skill if you think about it. That single target can eliminate or erase a hero immediately if that hero does not have, you know, a jewel that allows it to survive on 1 HP. His top skill is actually the stronger one and something. Whoa, that's a lot of damage from my Yonhee again. Unfortunately, my Dylan's dies due to the death. The Wukong hits very hard as well, and somehow my Lubu countered. So Lubu is gonna do his 4-man AoE here. Let's look at the damage. It's very strong, very strong, but you must take note that he does have that high amount of crit and lethal, both around 80%, especially with Fenrir on the field, okay? So with that amount of crit and lethal rate, you can expect Lubu to do a crazy ton of damage. Even here, even though, you know, there's a lot of Guardian Rings blocking the damage, but imagine without the Guardian Rings, he would have hit 500,000, I believe. That is crazy, that is really crazy. So I think he is still a very good, you know, offensive DPS. I don't really like his awakened skill at all. It's super underwhelming. Like, you would expect very heavy damage when he uses his awakened skill, but that's not the case at all. And in fact, there's a few cases later on which I will show you guys that when he uses his awakened skill, it is at a time when I need him to do big damage, but he doesn't, because the awakened skill does fixed damage. And clearly that's not enough to help me win the battle. I guess that's the... oh, my Dylan's here, look. My Dylan's is on also very high crit and lethal rates. So that will explain his insane damage. And I realized Dylan's also needs survive on 1 HP because he's so frail that, you know, he can be obliterated easily, especially if there's reflex. So in terms of Lubu's possible remake, I would strongly suggest his passive and awakened skill to be changed because, you know, his passive doesn't really do much for the team anymore because Tara is not really in use now. So maybe a different kind of passive that can help to, boost the offensive team's capabilities would be great, or even, take on what Orca has and decrease magic damage received from allies. Since he already has that kind of mechanic for himself, I think that would be very beneficial. And I think somehow, he can try to raise crit rate just like an Eileen for the offensive team. I think that would be also very, very beneficial because after all, he is a leader, and I think a morale booster kind of concept for his passive would be great. As far as his awaken skill goes, I really hope they get rid of that fixed damage because it's so undeserving for him. I think he deserves, oh wow, that counter from Dylan's. Yeah, as I said, I decked my Dylan so well that I wanted to see that. Yeah, so Lupu's top skill. Sorry, I just keep cutting myself. But I was gonna say that I decked my Dylan so well that I wanted to see that insane, crazy, triple target counter when he transformed. Yeah. But all that said, okay, Lupu. He is still a very good heavy damaging unit. All that needs is his awaken skill to be revamped. Because that fixed damage, okay, useful in certain cases, especially when the enemy is left with very low health, then maybe it can be useful, but I really don't think it's so spectacular. And here his single targets the Wukong, completely reduces him to 1 HP and destroys the Yonhi. He's actually really strong. Definitely a unit that can be used even now based on damage output wise. And yeah, back to the awaken skill, definitely needs some change. There's so many times I just feel that it can be more, but nope. And in fact, hide units, I think that's an okay skill to keep. Changing formation is also good. So the effects that are on the awaken skill are okay, but not the damage output. Seems like this is a clutch match that he's gonna win. He won because he survived on 1 HP. I mean, look at this. You see what I mean? It's just not enough, and yeah, lost. These 3 are the matches with counter armor. The next 3 matches. Single target, thankfully it hit true on the Wukong again. So he's definitely a Wukong counter, especially if enemy Wukongs are not on the Guardian Ring. Somehow all the Wukongs I met so far are not on the Guardian Ring, which is pretty interesting. I think they expect Wukong to have very good bulk and he can live on the Willful Ring. I'm not sure, but so far all the Wukongs I've managed to touch them. Yeah, this is the counter Lupu with 98% counter, so you can pretty much expect him to counter every single thing. He still hits very hard on his skill, but that's no longer the main thing I would say, because when you are using a counter Lupu, you tend to buff his counter and counter damage. This is actually a build where you can actually increase counter attack damage with the Dark Knight Jewel instead of relying on skill use chance. That's my personal thought. You can, because he does have the counter rate on his exclusive item, which allows you to use a different kind of jewel setup for him. The only opinion I have about him as a counter hero is that like Yonhi is a better counter hero because she hits 2 targets. Dylan's is a better counter hero because he hits 3 targets, and Yonhi and Dylan's both benefit from additional status cast rate on their own because they have statuses that they can cast, and in that case you will tend to increase status cast rate for them already. So if they have additional accessories that apply different kind of status effects, they will have a higher chance to proc it compared to Lupu, who does not really rely on status effects. However, for the sake of this video, I actually gave him increased status cast rate so that he can land the Electrify properly. Otherwise, you probably won't see him land the Electrify from the Electrify accessory despite me giving it to him. And right now, I would say, his skill set, even though it's very, very strong, but when used too early, as you saw previously just a while ago, he can't really hit anyone because of the Guardian Rings. I mean, this is a common problem with all the DPS. No matter how strong your DPS is, you will get blocked by the Guardian Ring. But imagine, you know, him having a single target and not dealing that damage that we expect. I think it's kind of like waste of a turn basically. Unless, you know, that single target can also reduce buff duration, I think that will be a little better. At least there's something done on that single target, you know. And I think a single target in this meta right now should deserve to have a 2-turn reduction. So far there are no heroes with 2-turn reduction, but I think a single target skill, it's pretty okay to have a 2-turn reduction because ultimately it's only for one target compared to AoEs which have a single turn reduce. So I think that's one of the balances that they can improve for Lu Bu. And unfortunately he died also because, like I said, his defenses are not that high for a myth hero compared to the rest. I haven't really looked at his stats to determine whether they are higher or lower than Cult, but you know, he's definitely one of those heroes that are pretty frail. Again, he goes with his single target. Like I said, didn't hit anything, so it's like a waste. Imagine he did reduce turn duration, like 2 turns. At least it will benefit the team overall, you know what I mean? The Electrify lands though, so that's very good. But then again, I would expect him to land the Electrify because I gave it to him, right? Just like how you would expect Yeonhee to be landing statuses when you give her a status effect CC ring. So it's not something surprising, but you know, for him to land a status effect without much status effect cast rate, I think it's pretty good. Unfortunately, his awaken skill came up too early as well, and he also died too early because he got slayed by the Dylans. Dylans is just overly strong right now. Like, one effect attack can destroy your hero if they don't have a physical damage decrease for themselves. And I won with Cult shooting Judas right in the face. So let me know what you guys think of Lu Bu. Do you prefer him on the HP or the counter build? I prefer him on the HP and the very high crit and lethal rate build. So do leave in the comments what you think, and if you'd like to see more heroes being tested, stay tuned for more videos. Thank you so much and see you!